Hello there. Welcome to my show, COVID-19 update by Heerak for New Year's Eve. You know, it's New Year's Eve. It's incredible. Old year is going by and New Year is coming. Year 2020 is going away, and then 2021 is coming. It's incredible, isn't it? It's oh yeah. You wonder what 2021 will bring. You know what I mean? Um, it's New Year's Eve. People around the world are celebrating New Year's Eve. Yeah, maybe some of you have seen nice fireworks. Wonder who had the best New Year's Eve celebration. What's your opinion? Um, yeah, I worked 12-hour shift today in Virginia Hospital Center as a registered nurse, RN. Um, yeah, took care of a lot of patients, a lot of patients. Some of you are watching this show and saying, "Hey, there's my nurse." I'm a really good nurse. So if you are my patient, you're probably very happy. um, yeah, Georgetown University trained me really well. I did my 2 years master's program at Georgetown University in clinical nurse leader. 2 years of full-time study, 365 days a year, except like 1 to 2 week breaks between semesters. Very intense. And I'm a product of Georgetown University nursing, and I'm a Sigma Theta Tau nurse. Like Sigma nurse. Sigma Theta Tau is an international honor society of nursing. The most elite nurses become part of them, right? Because by definition, honor society honors those who are honorable. So I've been inducted into the Tau chapter, which is the Georgetown University chapter of Sigma Theta Tau. So yeah, I'm a darn good nurse. I'm a very good nurse. So those of you who had me as your nurse know how good I am. What can I say? So yeah, yeah, it's yeah, 12 hours today. I worked as a nurse. 12 hours yesterday. I worked as a nurse. Saving lives and helping you. um, yeah. So yeah, I mean today is New Year's Eve, and so I was happy to see several of my patients able to go be discharged and celebrate New Year's at home with their wife, husband and wife together, or like with their families. So it was good to see a lot of people being able to celebrate New Year's today at home. People got well enough to go home, so it was really good to see. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I see patients improving, and it's incredible. Sometimes you see patients who are like, you know, um, you know, uh, you see them and they're like completely better. It's like it's incredible how that happens. Um, but we work hard as nurses at Virginia Hospital Center to get you better. So it's like fruit of hard labor, right? In a way. So yeah. Um, I love the nurses I work with. They're really nice. Um, yeah, yeah. So yeah, today was a really, really good day. Yeah. So yeah. So yeah. Yeah. So yeah, happy New Year's Eve, everyone. And we're ushering in the New Year's in a few hours. Wow. That's incredible that we're going to be year 2021. It's even like makes sense, like 2021. It's like year 20 to year 21. You know what I mean? Who knew that would be so significant? You know, some people made a point of saying year 2020 is like perfect vision, right? 2020, year 2020 brought into focus what we need to see. Because with perfect vision, you see. Um, and Jesus said in the Gospels, ye have eyes, but ye do not see. Ye have ears, but ye do not hear. Um, and year 2020 brought into focus perfect vision. You know, hopefully, my show, COVID-19 Update by Heerak, embodies that perfect vision. As you know, I'm running for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th District. That's Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church, and Fairfax County. Virginia's 8th District. There's like over 800,000 people here. Obviously, I'm hoping to win in the year 2022. November 8th is the date of election. And it looks like we'll probably have early voting for 22 as well. I think I could beat Dan Byer. He's a nice guy. I like him, but I know I'm going to do a better job than he, and I think he knows that too. So I think secretly in his heart, Dan Byer wants me to win. You know how that is. Have you had a time when, you were in a competition and you kind of want someone to win because you think that person deserves to win? Have you had that feeling before? I think most human beings have had that feeling before. That deep inside somebody thinks to themselves, he should win, and they feel guilty about winning. I think everybody has had that experience before, like almost like you're winning and you want to win, but you don't want to win, because you feel like there's somebody more deserving than you, and we call that conscience, right? God gave everybody conscience. Um, and in your conscience, when people are nice or mean, um, and so you kind of know through your conscience what is good and what is evil, And in Romans 1, God talks about, the law of God is written in your heart, and nature. So part of that is the conscience, you have conscience. Um, yeah. So everybody has conscience, and everybody knows what is good and what is bad. Um, and obviously, we have original sin according to theology. So, you know, um, sometimes our conscience gets corrupted, you know. Um, as you know, I'm an expert theologian. Um, I'm professionally trained as a theologian, and I've written academic theological books. Just Google my name, Heerak Christian Kim, on Amazon.com. You'll see the books that I've written. And so you can see, or you can learn something new that may interest you, because people are always searching for things. People are searching for truth. People are searching for meaning in life. People are searching for hopes and dreams, and there are a lot of people. uh, who who are trying to find their way through the world, not quite knowing who they are, where they fit into the world. I never had that problem, to be honest with you, and I see that as a blessing from God. Um, and part of it is, I know I'm a son of God, child of God. I accepted Jesus Christ before I was born in my mother's womb. That's what I think, because I don't remember a moment that I didn't accept Jesus Christ as my God and my Savior. So I I like to think I accepted Jesus in my mother's womb as a little zygote. After sperm fertilized the egg in a little zygote form, like day one of being a zygote, I accepted like Jesus as my Lord and Savior. I like to think that because Christian theology, biblical Christian theology, basically explains it in terms of sperm and egg, right? Original sin is carried through the male seed or sperm. Female eggs are sinless. Male sperm carries the original sin. How do we know this from a theological angle? Because when Jesus was born of Virgin Mary, um, Virgin Mary was a virgin. She never had sex with a male, so her virgin was sinless. Her her vagina was sinless because male sperm had not entered that. It did not enter it. It did not touch the outside of it because male sperm carries original sin. So there's a physical dimension to it. So obviously you cannot see sin, but the sperm itself um, is alive, right? And you don't know where your soul is, but you know you have a soul. People talk about being soulmates. Where is your soul? You cannot identify it, but it's in there somewhere. In the same way, sperm has original sin. You can't identify it, but it's alive. Sperm is alive. So, and we talk about when people die, we say their soul separates from the body, right? That's death. In theology, death is defined as human soul leaves the body, right? So the body is no more. So obviously, biologically, we're talking about oxygen, in your body. But theologically or spiritually speaking, we talk about the soul. So there is a connection between the soul and the oxygen. And so, this idea has not been missed even among non-Christian thinkers. So in Greek philosophy, they talked about bios, life, and soul, suke. And I've done some serious research on nomos and suke, the concept of law as an embodied soul. And that's a Greek concept in Greek philosophy. And to a certain extent, nomos and sukos, nomos is law and sukos is embodied soul. So that concept in Greek philosophy um, transferred over to a certain extent in the concept of Jesus as an embodied law. So Jesus as law that is embodied. So Jesus is the nomos and sukos. So that's one of my original ideas that I came up with when I was a doctoral student at UCLA. Impressed the heck out of all my professors, as you can imagine. Um, I'm an original thinker. And, I have yet to write a book on that concept, the idea that I came up with. Um, at UCLA. It was a while ago. No one really has done much with it yet. Obviously, because I'm keeping up in the field. Um, because one of the things that you do as a researcher is you tie the knots, or you tie the dots, or you connect the dots. And it's not easy to do. It sounds easier than it is. It is very hard to do. So even if you give people like a treasure map, they cannot find the treasure. Um, and that's a metaphor for coming up with a magnum opus book. Even if I give you the thesis, Jesus is at nomos emsukos, even brilliant theologians cannot come up with the book that's going to be magnum opus. Because in order to come up with the book, you have to tie the knots, or you have to connect with the dots. It's very hard. And that's what makes me an expert. It's like I see a roadmap before me. I see a roadmap. I come up with an idea, that's like seed germinating. And I see before me for like years and years what has to be done to come up with the final product. It's just like it's there. That's what makes me Leonardo da Vinci of 21st century. It's like I've never really had a problem with writer's block. Yeah, I mean, I thank God for his gift, whose all knowledge comes from God. But I do hope to be able to write that book someday. Jesus says, nomos emsukos, but, there's a lot of things that I want to do in life. But one of the things that we are finite human beings. We're not God. We're not infinite. There's only a few things we can do. It doesn't matter how much of guy you are or player you are. All men have limitations. For example, King Solomon had 1,000 wives, right? Concubines and wives. Even if he has sex with every single woman, every one of his 1,000 women per day, he can't have sex with every one of them. So let's say he has sex with like 3 of his wives every day. He may barely make it so that he has sex once with every one of his wives. Think about that. So here is the king. He has 1,000 wives, and they're probably all beautiful and special in their own ways. And he can only have sex with one of them if he wants to be like equality oriented. Sex with one woman per day, once a year. That itself shows how finite human beings are. Let's say he likes one of his 1,000 wives more than others, and he has sex with her for 1 week every day. That means he will not probably be able to have sex with all 1,000 women in a given year. You see how finite it is? Even though King Solomon has 1,000 women who he calls his wife, who he can have sex with every day, he cannot. It's physically impossible. And that shows that human beings are finite. That proves that human beings are not God. Right? There's a limitation. A limitation that limits your happiness. If you define happiness as sexual pleasure, right? You hit a wall. That's what limitation is, right? You can never have infinite happiness. I don't know if I saw the movie, TV show, Dawson's Creek. I stopped watching that because it became really weird. It looked like it was like gay preaching, preaching to encourage people to become gay or something. And I'm like, what the heck? What the heck? I really liked Dawson's Creek for a while, and then it's like preachy, it's like trying to preach to the teenagers who are watching that show that they should consider becoming homosexual. I'm like, what the heck? It ruins it. So I stopped watching Dawson's Creek. But I thought, there were some learning moments in Dawson's Creek. There's a happy family with father, mother, daughter, or father, mother, son. And father married the love of his life, that woman that he fell in love with at first sight. And they were really happily married. The wife cheats on the husband. She's a TV anchor with her co-TV anchor. And when husband confronts her, you know what she says? She said, I was so happy in my marriage. I wanted to break that happiness. Isn't that weird? But sometimes women think like this. Um, this is where I think men and women are different. Men will never say like, I'm so happy I want to destroy him. It doesn't work that way. But with women, they sometimes think that way. And I think it relates to the concept of boredom. Like, the saying, nice guys finish last. Women tell you that they want a nice guy, but often you see in real world, women date jerks, right? And you wonder, if you're a guy, you wonder to yourself, why is she dating a jerk, right? Um, and then it dawned on me because I have a lot of female friends. And they tell me the thing that they fear the most is boredom. So they say nice guys are boring. And I said, wow, what does that, why do they think that? And this is why, I think that, you know, uh, if women pursue that line of thinking, they're destined to be unhappy. Think about it. A guy who's nice to you, let's say you consider that as boring. Um, what do you want? Like drama and excitement? Quote, drama, excitement. Um, what does drama mean? You see what I'm saying? And so maybe it's a result of sin. You know, um, Maybe God threw a monkey wrench in there for women to pursue excitement rather than boredom. And boredom becomes equal with niceness. And so, when I saw Dawson's Creek, and when she said that statement, I said, well, that's an interesting statement. And the guy is an idiot. He talks to a guy, a male friend of his, who's a swinger. And his male friend is like, that's the way we keep our marriage happy. I mean, there are swingers in life, but for him to take that advice, shows how screwed up he is. But there are guys who would take that kind of advice. So I see how screwed up some guys can be. So men are also kind of wired to be, unhappy in a way, right? Um, and that may be the result of original sin, because obviously without original sin, you would pursue perfect happiness. And that's why there's so much tragedy in the world, perhaps, because evil is not outside of us, but evil is within us. If we define evil as impetus that drives away from self-interest, right? Like in Dawson's Creek, the wife who cheats on her husband because she is, she feels like she's too happy, that her life is too perfect. You see what I mean? Why would you want to destroy paradise? But there's some truth to that, you see? And I'm a historian, professionally trained historian from UCLA, so I understand throughout history you have episodes like this. My dad's church, there was this one couple, and this shocked everybody in my dad's church. Everybody in my dad's church knows what I'm talking about. There was a happy couple, father, mother, two children. Guy is the nicest guy in the world, deacon in the church. Woman is a deaconess. Two children are perfect children. And you know what happened? He's an immigrant. So he and his wife worked together in they opened up a little, like local grocery store. It's not a big grocery store, but like corner market where people come and pick up stuff within the inner city neighborhood because they, like Koreans in Philadelphia live in inner city neighborhoods when they first come to America and then they move out into the suburbs. So they open up a shop and they work hard. Both of them work together. And they hired someone to work in their store. And I guess the guy was too trusting. I guess he made a move, on the girl. And maybe he should have paid more attention to his wife. What ended up happening is she eloped with that worker. They disappeared. Nobody knows where they are. And the guy who started working, like he has, I guess the husband hired him because he was willing to work for cheap pay. And he didn't, so he just disappeared with his wife. I didn't know her. She left her husband and two children like that. And so I was thinking, when I was seeing Dawson's Creek about that, even in your perfect happiness, something can happen in the heart of a woman, your wife, they can destroy that happiness. And it strikes you. You don't see it coming. Like that, the deacon did not see him coming. Nobody at the church saw it coming. But that's what original sin is. Evil is not outside of us, it's in us. And we struggle with it, We struggle with the evil that's in us that could consume us. And in Calvinism, we call that total depravity. Total depravity means human beings have sinfulness inside, and that's original sin. And if you don't tame that original sin, control it, it can dominate you. And it could cause you to do things that you may not normally want to do. And if you are someone else looking at yourself doing what you're doing, you may regret it. You may even condemn it. But it's because it's you kind of giving into your evil impulse. You don't always see it the way you would if someone else were doing it. And in Calvinism, we call that original sin. And obviously, John Calvin was an Augustinian monk. And most of his ideas are kind of based on St. Augustine, hundreds of years before over 1,000 years before he was born. And I think there's truth to that. I'm a Calvinist, one, because I was born into it. My father's Presbyterian minister. Both of my grandparents fathers are Presbyterian ministers. So I was born into it, studying Westminster Shorter Catechism, and there's also a larger catechism and Westminster Confession of Faith. But as I start studying all these systems of theology, Arminianism, Calvinism, I come to realize, that I think Calvinism makes most sense. You know, just observing what happens in the world. Um, so I was born into Calvinism, but I also came to accept that as the most accurate embodiment. And Calvinism is Augustinianism, and there are still Augustinian monks in the Catholic Church today. Um, and so the evil is within us, and sometimes we succumb to it. And so, and that's the tragedy of human race, you know, because if evil were outside of us, we could fight it more easily, but it's within us. You can't get away from it. And obviously, St. Paul talks about it as fight the good fight, meaning like you fight yourself, your inner self. Um, and Greek philosophers recognize that people can choose to act on their impulses that are negative. So you have Greek philosophers saying, "Know thyself," and you have Greek philosophical movements like the Stoics, who try to control their emotions because they localized human evil in emotion. So they said if we could control the emotion, they could control the evil, kind of like the Spock, live long and prosper. Um, as long as you're rational, you're not going to commit evil. And that's not totally accurate. There are a lot of rational people who commit evil. Um, so Greek philosophers, at least the Stoics, were proven false. And then you have like the cynics. They said, as long as you are always questioning yourself, questioning the world around you, being cynical, then maybe you can control evil that way. So you have a school of thought in Greek philosophy where cynicism reigns as a way to bring happiness to the self and to the world, and a way to control evil. But as you know, some of the cynical people are the most evil people. And so that obviously has proven to be wrong as well, um, which provides a proof that evil is not outside, but it's within us. You know, and you listen to Russian music in the background. Don't you love that Russian music? Yeah, Russians gave us great classical music. Um, and maybe COVID-19 is a metaphor as well. Although COVID-19 is outside going into us, but once inside, it hijacks our DNA mechanism and start proliferating, right? So it's like original sin, I guess. Your father's sperm fertilizes your mother's egg, and mother's egg is sinless. But your father's sperm carries sin. Once it fertilizes it, sin multiplies in your body, meaning like sin is in every cell of your body. You see what I'm saying? Um, so that may be a good analogy then. Um, it's a type of replication or reproduction, right? Um, even though knowledge is similar, COVID-19 goes in and it has to penetrate, right? Um, yeah, it's a when you study even biology, you come to understand like, wow, the truth of the Bible, you could kind of identify it in the activity of bioorganisms and biosphere, when you study the theology and compare it to what goes in the biological realm. They're like analogies. So in England, they actually have an award that combines theology and science. I think it's called Templeton Prize. I forgot the name of the prize, but maybe I could get it. They pay like $500,000 to the winner. So hey, $500,000, count me in. But yeah, yeah. Let's go to our numbers today on New Year's Eve. COVID-19 is wreaking havoc on New Year's Eve. Yeah, it's pretty surprising what's going on. Oh, that just kind of rushed ahead to the next year. So yeah, 3,772 people have died in the last 24 hours. As you know, yesterday we had over 4,000 deaths. So what I've been saying, and I'm Heerak Christian Kim, candidate for U.S. Congress of Virginia's 8th District, it seems like what I've been saying is proving correct. So death numbers are going up and up and up. So eventually, the current average of 4,000 will go up to 5,000. And I'm predicting that we're going to get to 10,000 sometime in January, 10,000 deaths per day. It's a virus, its whole purpose is to multiply and infect and kill. So as a biological living organism, its biological dictate is to multiply, infect, and kill humans in order for it to survive, right? Which is sad for us because we're human beings. But for COVID-19, they're probably celebrating New Year's Eve because they're achieving their goal in the American setting. You see what I'm saying? So in any given conflict situation, one party's loss is another party's gain, right? One party's tragedy is another party's blessing. You see how that works? Everybody does not agree. We are not in this together. Someone wins, someone loses, And that's why, when you try to force a unity, it creates problems because it's not realistic, simplistic, Yeah, you can never really have unity anywhere. I mean, you study history, you cannot find a single time in history where there's unity. Really? Show me one time in history where there was unity. You may have a united front, but even within the united front, there's diversity and conflict. So we call that internecine conflict, right? Conflict within your in-group, internecine conflict. 3,772 people have died in the last 24 hours. Can you see how sad that is? 3,772 people? That's like the size of a university. Like a small university, right? Like Franklin and Marshall College. I mean, Dickinson College, both of them are in Pennsylvania. Lena Knorr went to, she's in one of the graduates of Masters in Political News Leader. She went to Franklin and Marshall College. Hi, Lena. And Eric Fries, a friend of mine from Israel, who's an American, who went NYU, who went to Dickinson College and started pursuing PhD at NYU. I ended up finishing his PhD at St. Andrews University in Scotland. Um, yeah, so he went to Davidson. Oh, hey, Eric. So yeah, life is like that. Another thing life is like is you meet a lot of people, and sometimes you don't always choose the right one. You know what I mean? You may meet the right people, and you may have the right people like in your hands, but you end up choosing wrong. You know what I mean? Um, let me share a story. Maybe this is not pertinent, but do you see the photo right below this video camera? This is a photo of my first um, formal hall, and I like this girl named Laura Davis, Davis. I wonder if she's related to one of my professors at Georgetown, because we have Professor Davis who taught us um, several classes. Um, Hi, Professor Davis. Maybe she's related. But Laura Davis, like several days after I started at Cambridge University, she's a member of Jesus College too. And I saw her and she's like really pretty. So I started talking to her and I really, she's pretty and nice and tall. So I really liked her. So I told this guy, the guy who's like in the right side of the photo, that I like her, Laura Davis. And a few weeks afterwards, I bought a ticket for Fort Mahal, and I told him about it. And he bought a ticket, and I went to Fort Mahal, and there was like one table. Generally, the whole room is filled, but there was only one table, and he was there. Laura Davis was there, and I was there, and his friends and her friends were there, and her little brother was there. I mean, little kids don't come, but that day he came. And I thought, oh, how strange, like at Jesus College, where it's filled with students who form on, like only one table is open, and it's just me and her and like her friends and her younger brother. Thinking back, maybe she arranged it. I don't know. Maybe she liked me the way I liked her. And maybe she arranged this for us. You know, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how women think. I mean, I do kind of know how women think, but you can never know for sure if you're a guy. And you see how she's smiling. I'm the one taking the photo. Um, and I think to myself, what if, you know, uh, we kind of got together then? And I don't know too much about her background. I like her as a person, and she's pretty and she's nice. She, I liked her. I like her as a person. But what if? What if we became a couple? Like there was like very beginning part of my Cambridge life. What if we start dating and got married? My good buddy there, and she and all her friends were there, and her younger brother was there. Maybe she was trying to, send a message, through her younger brother, even. Um, Maybe I missed the message, and I don't know enough about English culture at that time to understand exactly what was happening. I guess maybe. So I'm thinking to myself, you know, uh, what if, what if What if Laura Davis and I hooked up? I really liked her, but maybe I missed something on that. You know, um, who knows, right? Um, it's funny. It's funny how life is like that. Because I probably could have married Laura Davis and we've been very happy. You know, she's very pretty, she's very nice. As I've shared with you before, most men can marry thousand like different women and be equally happy. Men are very simple that way. Um, in the early days of Cambridge, I also met Jo, the American girl, blonde hair girl. To the right, she's from California. I think it's like she's from a millionaire or billionaire family in California. And then to the left, what was her name? She's from Scotland, Edinburgh. I like both of them. So they're you know, so they're two people that I met earlier in my Cambridge life, and you see that's the front entrance of Jesus College next to that. Um, and then I asked this girl from Claremont. She's a student at Claremont, I guess Claremont College in California. So I asked her out on a date, and she said yes. So you see us on a date, and that was the 500th anniversary of Lady Margaret professor. She was really pretty. Obviously, that's why I asked her out to this formal hall. 500th year anniversary. Can you imagine? That's like, can you imagine how special that is? Anyway, so she and I she was a junior. She was doing a junior year abroad. So she was like, I guess 20 years old or so at Cambridge. But she's a full-time student at Claremont College doing junior abroad at Cambridge. And, I asked her out. I happened to meet her and I thought she was really pretty. So I asked her out and she said yes. And I think to myself, what would have happened, if things progressed further and we got married. Um, Life is like that, right? Because once a girl says yes to like a big date like that, um, it's like she's kind of giving you an in. Like, I mean, she is willing to consider you, although it doesn't mean anything is guaranteed per se. But you know, um, I wasn't really thinking about that at the time, and maybe that was a problem. Like maybe she was really serious, or maybe she wasn't that serious, but she was willing to give me a shot, as a her potential mate. Because a lot of college students meet the love of their life that they end up marrying in sophomore year or freshman year, even or junior year. It's very common. Um, so obviously she was a junior and she was willing to give me a shot. Um, but I wasn't thinking, maybe I should have been a little bit more serious about that. Um, and then next to that is a photo with Alice. Alice from she was a PhD student at Cambridge University in theology, and she and I became friends. She's half Indian, half white, but she looks white, right? But she liked me a lot. I took her out for her birthday. So I took her out to dinner, and she invited me over to her place, and and we had coffee and chatted, and it was we had a nice time. I think she liked me. You know, so but like you meet people throughout your life, and then do you always choose the right one, or do you, you know? Um, It's kind of interesting, when you think about that. Life is funny that way. Um, but like since we are in a New Year's Eve, we think about these things. Because New Year's Eve is a moment when you kind of think back in the past as well, right? Um, yeah. I'm sure you're thinking about your past too. But life is like that. You live 100 years. Ideally, you make the right decisions. Because there isn't that much room to be unhappy, to make the wrong choices, because you veer off into the wrong direction. You know, months, years can pass by, and those are happiness years you lose. Um, yeah, I mean, for those of you who made wrong choices, you may regret that. Yeah, I mean, I think about what if, but yeah, who knows? Maybe God's been preserving me to marry the right woman now. Who knows, right? Um, yeah. Um, top five, top five COVID-19 cases in the world. United States is number one with 19,967,278 cases, 2% death rate, 345,736 deaths. It's a lot. Look at that. We're like twice the number of death of number two, more than twice. India is number two. Well, actually, Brazil is number two in terms of death. Ooh, excuse me, 12-hour shift as a nurse. It's very, I mean, I like being a nurse, but 12-hour shifts. Anybody who's done 12-hour shifts, you may get tired. You know what I mean? Um, yeah. So India, 10,266,674 cases. 148,738 deaths, almost 150,000. Brazil is number three. Cases are millions less than India, 7,675,973, but the deaths are 194,949. So tens of thousands more because the percentage of people dying are higher. That makes a big difference. Russia is number four, and we've been listening to Russian music. 3,127,347 cases. 56,271 have died, 2% death rate. France is number five with 2,677,666 cases. And death is at 64,759, 2% death rate. Oh, excuse me. So today's title is COVID-19 ICU Nightmare. Yeah. Obviously, when you have like 4,000 people dying every day, there's an ICU nightmare in every hospital. So let's read the first article. A record number of COVID-19 patients are in the ICU in Arizona. So it's about Arizona. The Arizona Department of Health Services says there's a new high of 988 patients with COVID-19 occupying intensive care unit beds as of Sunday, a few days ago. Arizona is having its worst surge since July, and you can bet that it's worse now. when 970 people with the virus were in the ICU on July 13th, accounting for 57% of available beds. The number of available ICU beds is about 10% at the moment. Additionally, they also reported a total of 1,296 confirmed cases. September 23rd was recorded to be the lowest number of ICU beds being used by COVID-19 patients. 114 beds were in use at that time, accounting for 7% of beds in the state. It's going to get far worse, folks. It's only, well, now it's going to be January 1st, but think about it. How many more months do we have to go? January, February, March, April, May, June. We have 6 months to go. 5 to 6 months to go. What do you think is going to happen in that period? Yeah, it's going to get exponentially worse. And that's why I'm saying we're going to hit 10,000 deaths per day in January. It's going to get exponentially worse. That's the tragedy. You know the tragedy is coming, right? And that's why some of you are celebrating your New Year's Eve in a big way, because you're anticipating possibly dying before June. And many of you may die, I'm predicting minimum 3 million Americans will die by June. So you have mixed reactions, right? Some people are like, oh, we're going to die. No, I don't want to die, so I'm going to isolate. Obviously, that's the way to live. But another reaction is like, hey, I may die. Why don't I just have fun? I don't want to die being bored, missing out. And that's true too, right? Because whether you're having fun or not fun, you can always get infected with COVID and die by June. Some people are like, well, if I'm going to die by June, I'd rather have fun. So there's a rationale to that argument too. Obviously, if you want to live, you should socially isolate. It increases your chance, but it's not foolproof, right? Even if you isolate yourself, if you go somewhere and get a haircut from a barber who has COVID-19, that one haircut could get you COVID and you could die from it. That has happened to a lot of people in England. It has happened to a lot of people in America, all over the world. Yeah, it's tragedy for everyone. Second article, Austin ICU doctor calls overwhelmed hospitals a nightmare none of us want to come to. You know how you cannot always control your nightmare? Have you seen the movie Nightmare on Elm Street? You should see it. It's a classic movie from decades ago. If you fall asleep, you dream about Freddy Krueger, who can kill you in your sleep. So you should watch. I mean, it's kind of it's pretty scary sometimes, But it capitalizes on this idea of nightmare. Everybody has had nightmare. That's a common human experience. So we all know what we mean when we say nightmare. And it's kind of like that, right? Doctors say we don't want a nightmare, but they can't avoid it. Just like you cannot avoid nightmares. If you fall asleep, you can have a nightmare. Like in Nightmare on Elm Street, the movie. And this is like Billy Gates, not Bill Gates, Billy Gates. Similar name, but different person. And here in the article, it says, we are tired. The words of Austin area intensive care unit physician, Dr. Shailaya Hayden, are not only hers, but of all healthcare workers in the area, as COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations continue to rise out of control. Yeah, it's kind of It's going out of control everywhere in America, sadly enough. Hayden spoke with Dr. Mark Escott, Austin Travis County's interim health authority, and Travis County Judge Andy Brown during Escott's COVID-19 update with Brown. And her words were both powerful and a plea for help from the community. The projections are chilling, she said, following Escott's explanation of data projections from the University of Texas, showing ICU beds could be full by next week. But this is Austin, Texas, by next week. And obviously it's not 2, it's 12, 29, 20, 12. I don't know what happened to the 1. Yeah, by next week, ICU can be full in Austin, Texas. And that's like in many places in America. Third article, nightmare. Number 3. Texas boy 11 in ICU with rare but serious complication associated with COVID-19. Look at what can happen to your child. I'm predicting that thousands of children will die in every state. Thousands of children will die in Virginia. Thousands of children will die in Maryland. Thousands of children will die in California. Thousands of children will die in Pennsylvania. So that's my prediction. That's by June 2021. Look at what can happen to your boy. Yeah, your boy who's 11 years old. Texas boy 11 in ICU with rare but serious complication associated with COVID-19. That can happen to your boy. Yeah, your girl. According to his mom, Angie Carson, who's a 5th grader at Willie West Elementary, tested positive for COVID-19 on November 8th. He's been sick for last 10 days, and doctors in Abilene were not able to determine why. Because he had COVID on November 8th, right? Supposedly he got over it, right? So supposedly he got over it, maybe it was asymptomatic, like he wasn't showing any signs and symptoms. And suddenly, for the past 10 days, so past 10 days means, let's say, December 19th through December 29th, right? They were not able to determine why. And just took him to Fort Worth on Monday, where doctors at Cook Children's diagnosed him with MISC. That's basically inflammation, or what I'm calling the New York virus that started in New York in April and May. At one point in May, this was killing 1 child per day in New York in May. He has a high fever, swelling in his heart and colon, a swollen mouth, hands, feet, and a rash. Children can die from this. So there are many different ways children can die. Children can die from COVID-19, impacting their breathing problems, and they could stop breathing and die. Or they could die because of the inflammation, which this is like a related, like you get COVID and then you may not die of COVID, but you could die of this related disease that strikes some COVID patients. There are many different ways your child can die from COVID. And that's why I'm saying thousands of children will die in Virginia from COVID. And that's why I'm trying to close the schools down, because I care about your life. I don't want your children to die. I don't believe in the liberal media that says open schools. No, I say close those schools down because I care about your life. We have the technology to teach your children 100% online. Why? Why jeopardize their life? I don't understand that. It doesn't make sense to me. We have all these educational resources we can use online, remote learning, just as good as in-class learning. Why would you want to jeopardize your children's lives? Doesn't make sense. There are over 2 million people homeschooling their children now before COVID-19. I mean, you should consider doing that. If your school is forcing your child to go to school, you could just say, heck with this, I'll homeschool my child. Because how much happiness will you have if your child dies? Let's be honest here. You may have a great job, right, that pays you hundreds of thousands of dollars or maybe millions of dollars a year. How happy would you be if your child dies from COVID? What, if you have something saved up, don't you think it's worth it to take a year off from school or from work? Is this going to protect your child from COVID death? And a lot of women are doing that, They're deciding to homeschool their children. Yeah, I mean, it's stupid to send your child to a school uh, with a physical class right now. It's just absolutely stupid. I don't know why you would do that. I mean, I know why you would do that. I know the reasons you're giving everyone. But is that all worth risking your child's life? It doesn't make sense. Because you cannot get your child's life back when your child dies. So you got to do risk benefit analysis, I mean, if your child dies, quality of education is worthless because your child is dead. So this is a question of priorities. What is more important? Your child's education or your child's life? I think the answer is pretty simple. Yeah, I mean, these are not mere numbers, 4,000 people dying every day. These are real people dying. So yes, I know today is New Year's Eve. And obviously I'm wishing you a happy New Year's Eve. But will it be a happy New Year if you die or your child dies? So for me, I think this is a logical show pointing out this important fact, because your new year, our new year, 2021, will only be happy for you if you survive it, with your children surviving, not your children dying. That's not going to make you happy, right? So I think it's important to address this before you make your New Year's resolution if you haven't made it yet. I think you need to prioritize your children. You need to prioritize your children's lives more than other things like education or socialization or social emotional learning. Those are all important, but not as important as your child's life. You see what I'm saying? In the pecking order of importance, you need to be able to triage or prioritize what is the most important. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, what good is your child's education if your child is dead? That alone should signal to you the most important thing is keeping your child alive. Yes, COVID can kill your child. You can kill your child in many different ways. Like as an inflammation, which is called MISC, as a respiratory illness that causes pneumonia, your child could die of pneumonia. Your child could have a stroke. Your child could die of a stroke. I mean, geez, you know how many possible ways your child could die if your child gets COVID? And you may be like, oh, my child got COVID, but it's asymptomatic. Months later, your child may develop MISC, and die from that. So, yeah, so let's prioritize your children's lives. So obviously, as you look at year 2021, you need to decide what is the most important thing for you, right? And you have to decide what's most important thing for your children who are your dependents. What is the most important thing for them? So in a sense, New Year's Eve should be a festive time of celebration, but also you need to think about a little bit about your family and your children, especially if you're married. And if you're single, you may want to think about what you want out of life. I mean, you may die decades before your time because of COVID. Given that you can die at the age of 25 from COVID, what do you want out of life if you're 18-year-old? What do you want? If you know today that you could die by 25 and you're 18, how would you want to spend the next 7 years of your life? These are things that you have to think seriously about because it can happen to you. As far as we know, COVID-19 is 365 days a year virus that can stay forever. That's a possibility. And so that's why you need to think about this a little bit. Obviously, I created this show to help you survive COVID and your children to survive COVID. I also want you to have quality of life, not just survive COVID, but maximize your life during COVID. And so, this show is dedicated to your life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. So, and that's why the New Year's Eve show is like this, right? It's trying to help you understand who you are, where you are in the world, and what you should be thinking about if your goal is to achieve familial happiness, right? And your personal happiness is tied to your children's lives, right? How happy would you be if your children died of MISC by March? So these are serious questions you need to think about. So, yeah. I'm going to bring more important, helpful information to you tomorrow as well. So I hope that you will tune in. Obviously, I would love to say COVID-19 is not going to kill your children, but that would be a lie. COVID-19 is already killing children, right? Why should we live in a lie, right? We need to live in a world of truth. So the question is, what do you want in year 2021? What do you want for yourself? What do you want for your children? What do you want for your family? You need to decide what you want. And obviously, like any kind of goal, you want to plan your life around it, right? If you're going to die at age 25, possibly, what do you want to accomplish in the next 7 years if you're 18-year-old? And then you have to work toward that goal. So that's something that you need to think about. Yeah, hopefully we all survive, but I don't think we all will survive because obviously 4,000 people are dying every day. So all of us will not survive, unfortunately. But sorry to end on such a sad note, because it is New Year's Eve. Probably you're not watching this show on New Year's Eve. you'll probably watch it like New Year's Day because you're busy celebrating. But I think this is an important point that we must make, right? Given the circumstances, um, because I'm trying to ensure your future happiness, right? Which can be protected. So yeah, I hope that you will be well and that your children will be well. Happy New Year!